And I had to sit with that one for a minute. I had to sit with that for a minute because I think that's a narrative we've all grown up with, right? Going back to what I said earlier, we are taught civics, social studies in a very specific way. And part of democracy and part of upholding democracy is that you show up and vote. And if you don't vote, you didn't exercise your voice, and therefore you don't have the right to complain. And I was like, wow, what an indoctrinated way to censor people. What an interesting way to tell people that your voice doesn't matter and your concerns don't matter and that you don't actually have a voice or a way to participate, right? And the conversation with him ultimately became about choice, right? Because it's like he was accepting what we've been taught as how we're supposed to participate with our systems. He accepted that you go, you vote, and if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And I'm saying, but there's actually another way. There is another way that we can look at this system. There are other ways we can choose to participate. And it goes beyond just showing up at a ballot box, right? It has to do with how we choose to communicate with the administration of the corporation of HRM. It has to do with how we choose to communicate with these elected officials. And one of my questions to him was, because it's like every time you present an opposing fact, it's like, well, you watch too much TV. You spend too much time working and looking at fraud. You sound like an American. And it gets so interesting how the goalpost keeps changing away from like the initial comment in question. But ultimately I said, by that logic, that I don't have the right to complain if I don't vote, that means that if I show up at a ballot box and every option I am to vote for is a bad option, then I am supposed to vote for the best of the worst. That we are supposed to settle. That we are supposed to choose something that we don't necessarily align with, because if I don't choose, I don't have the right to voice my concerns. And that seemed to end the conversation. Didn't really seem to go past that point. Because it's flawed logic when we think of it, right? Because we're also not taught that we have the ability to choose how to participate